and gentlemen, it's 9 p.m. and you're with me, Navika Kumar, on the Newshour this evening. And today we'll bring you the tapes, the blood-chilling tapes of how adults are actually instigating children to cry out blood-curdling slogans. This, ladies and gentlemen, the Rohingya recruitment tapes are about the innocent minds that are being radicalized. And they are being radicalized right in the center of these Rohingya settlements that are coming up in various parts of the country. Is that something that the government should be worried about? Is the national security not a supreme reason why this decision should be based only on national security rather than what activists are calling a humanitarian concern? What about the blood-curdling slogans that impressionable children are being asked to raise? What about threats that are coming from across the border where they're talking about taking up arms to take the revenge from Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Aung San Suu Kyi? All of those revelations coming up on the Rohingya recruitment tapes in just a bit from now. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the top focus on the Newshour at 9. We'll bring you the Rohingya recruitment tapes. The activists never admit the truth that comes out on tape tonight on the Newshour. Debate number 2 at 10 p.m. on the Newshour tonight is Atank, not Azadi. Their Azadi mask is off. Hunters, not saviors. Shocking ISIS-style execution that's caught on tape. That video exposes the complete truth of what's happening in Jammu and Kashmir. That's coming up on the Newshour at 10. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, pick up your phones, your iPads, your computers, and also engage with us on involve.in/Newshour. Send us your questions. We will take them on the Newshour. And even as the debate is going on, continue to vote for the panelists, who you agree with and who you disagree with, because that is what is going to set the tenor of the two debates coming up on the Newshour tonight. But before we go across to the two debates, let's take a look at the top headlines making news this evening. Exposes tapes that draw a link between the recruiters and the radicalization of Rohingyas and their supporters. It's a mega Times Now exclusive.
If any terrorists are there, government is to take action against of them. But the commoner should not suffer. This is a humanity.
The issue should not be looked as a Muslim issue. It is a humanitarian issue.
The centre makes it official in court, backs deportation of Rohingyas, categorizing them as risks to national security. Mamata Owaisi questioned the government stand. Delhi police team arrests Al-Qaeda operative in Delhi. Stunning Rohingya link emerges. Times Now exclusive image of terrorist arrested back in 2014 in Bangladesh. Where are the apologists? What do they have to say about the brutal murder of a citizen who backed India by terrorists in the state of Kashmir? Haryana land scandal explodes. A Congress-era Babu and a serving UPSC member to be sacked as CBI suspects quid pro quo. Will he lead agencies to Vadra? Absurd Game of Thrones continues in Tamil Nadu. Speaker suspends 18 rebel MLAs hold up in court. Dinakaran faction moves court against disqualification.
You're watching the Newshour at 9.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we ask the basic question. How far is giving shelter to hate justified in the garb of humanity? The centre has told the Supreme Court today that it is firm in its stand on Rohingya deportation as there is very credible proof linking them to terror groups in Pakistan. The groups that are radicalizing them for terror attacks. Times Now, for the first time, has access to proof that links the recruiters in Pakistan to radicalization of Rohingyas in India and their sympathizers. Listen in to this blood-curdling tapes that Times Now has access.
We have been focusing on clear and present danger that is emanating what many people believe are the ranks of those who we must actually embrace.
It was Times Now that first revealed the radicalization risk behind sheltering illegal immigrants from Myanmar. Today, the centre affirmed its intention to deport the Rohingyas, citing national security concern.
We have been focusing on clear and present danger that is emanating what many people believe are the ranks of those who we must actually embrace. How do you view this, sir?
The Rohingyas have always got an agenda, and the agenda is to have sleeper cells for these terrorist organizations.
Will you still say that we must provide shelter at the cost of the nation's national security?
The government stand and top court started a massive political face-off.
And there's also a strong school of opinion which believes that these illegal settlements were facilitated by these ruling parties the hope that one day this would change the democratic profile and give them the advantage of vote.
It is possible that one or two may be terrorists. Catch them. How can you catch hold of 40,000 fleeing refugees who are being terrified out of their minds to leave their country and come here, and who are seeking protection? How can you term them all a security threat?
एफिडेविट फाइल एफिडेविट के बारे में आप सबको जानकारी है। जो भी फैसला होना है वो कोर्ट के द्वारा फैसला होना है। मैं समझता हूं कि हम सबको कोर्ट के फैसले की प्रतीक्षा करनी चाहिए।
Issue should not be looked as a Muslim issue. It is a humanitarian issue. These people have ran from their country to save themselves from a terrorist Myanmar military government, and to send them back would be a great travesty of justice.
But while the security versus shelter debate rages on, Times Now has accessed fresh proof of the terror link. Sitting in Pakistan, instigators exhort youth to join the so-called jihad.
ये तलवार हाथ में पकड़कर मैं मोदी और सूची की साजिश को ललकार रहा हूं। हमने बर्मा के जिहाद के लिए आज से रजाकार भर्ती करने का काम शुरू कर दिया है। आज के प्रेस रिलीज में और इस वक्त के इस एलामिया के प्रोग्राम में मैं ऐलान कर रहा हूं, इंशाअल्लाह तहरीक लब्बैक या रसूल अल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की तरफ से पहले मरहला में हम 1 लाख रजिस्टर्ड नौजवानों की लिस्ट पेश करेंगे। बदला लेंगे, हम बदला लेंगे, हम बदला लेंगे, हम बदला लेंगे, हम बदला लेंगे।
The call for terror slowly poisoning young minds. The truth about security risk in giving refuge to illegal immigrants is out in the open. The big question remains, is giving shelter to hate in any way going to further the cause of humanity? Bureau Report, Times Now. Tonight, the debate on Newshour at 9. Is sheltering hate humanity? The debate on Newshour at 10. Azadi mask off, Atank truth exposed.
You're watching the News Hour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
And joining me this evening on the debate, where we are asking the question, is sheltering hate actually sign of humanity, or is protecting the country's national security the supreme objective of the government in power? That question coming up on the News Hour. And as I open up this debate, I'm introducing my guest tonight, Nalin Kohli, National Spokesperson of the BJP, Arima Sundaram, Senior Lawyer, Ghansham Tiwari, National Spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party, Dr. Tasleem Ahmad Rahmani, President of the Muslim Political Council of India, Dr. Fuad Halim, Spokesperson of the CPIM, Taslima Nasreen, author, also joining us in just a bit, N.D. Pancholi, Vice President of the PUCL, who even marched just a few days ago to express solidarity with the Rohingyas, joining me this evening. And my first question, before I go across to Mr. N.D. Pancholi, the big questions tonight are, doesn't the Rohingya recruitment tape completely expose those who are attaching a communal motive to the centre's decision to deport illegal Rohingya immigrants? Also, the question that arises tonight is, after the Rohingya recruitment tapes, can activists and opposition leaders afford to ignore the clear and present risk posed by Rohingyas to India's security? Question number 3 tonight, isn't it true that in Europe a majority of terror attacks have taken place because nations open doors to illegal immigrants, overlooking complete security concerns? And question number 4, ladies and gentlemen, tonight is, will the opposition take responsibility or blame the centre if there is a terror attack, God forbid, on Indian soil linked to the Rohingya illegal immigrants? Who will they hold? Who will they hold responsible for that? That's the question I ask N.D. Pancholi, Vice President of the PUCL. You pick up cudgels, you take out marches, you begin to become these activists who are the only humanitarian people in this world. What about the security concerns, Mr. Pancholi?
Madam, I have dealt large number of terror-related cases, including Parliament attack case, for the last 30 years, Tada, Pota. It is for the first time I am hearing that Rohingyas are involved. In large number of cases, not a single Rohingya was involved in any terror-related cases. Suddenly, I do not understand how this has cropped up.
We are saying there is danger that they could be involved in future. That is the intelligence reports that the government is sitting on.
If there is
and
a
it's been
danger,
stated in the affidavit that's been submitted in court.
Madam, yes, madam, I have seen so many affidavits, so many national security threat. Emergency was imposed only on the ground of that there is a national security threat. So courts don't have to go just what government says that it is a national security, so therefore people are going to believe it. You see, in 1988, when Punjab was at the height of militancy, there were some Iranians, and Punjab government said that they are posing a security threat, we will deport them. We filed the petition in the Supreme Court, and on the first hearing, Supreme Court stayed there. They said, no, we are not, you have to prove whether there is a national security. This is the judgment of the Supreme Court, 1988, N.D. Pancholi versus State of Punjab. So this national, because government says national, but they have to prove, and if there is a national security threat, then there is a
they have to prove. Arima Sundaram, Mr. Arima Sundaram, if I can draw you in on this legal point that has been raised by Mr. N.D. Pancholi. May I ask you, Dr. Okay, Mr. Pancholi, let's get another legal voice in, Mr. Arima Sundaram. Mr. Arima Sundaram, this is the affidavit that has been submitted by the government in the Supreme Court of India, and on page 13, it goes on to list the several grave dangers to national security. It says it is submitted that illegal influx of Rohingyas in significant numbers have started since 2012-2013, and it says that there is serious security concern already in existence. More disturbing part is that there is an organized influx of illegal immigrants from Myanmar. It also goes on to say that there is ISI-ISIS nexus, something that Times Now exposed last week, that there is suspected sinister designs of ISI and ISIS and other extremist groups who want to achieve their ulterior motives in India, including that of flaring up communal and sectarian voices in India. And it goes on to state that Rohingyas have a militant background and are found to be very active in Jammu, Delhi, Hyderabad, Mewat. I ask you, Mr. Aryamasundram, with all these dangers as listed by the government in the affidavit submitted in the Supreme Court, is it still right for politicians and so-called humanitarian human rights activists to come out to the streets? Isn't national security something that should be weighing supreme in everybody's mind tonight?
Navika, there's absolutely no manner of doubt that the affidavit filed by the government today has definitely got people very, very concerned. Look, the fact of the matter is, let me just tell you, there's a slight difference which arises, which is what I think people are trying to harp on. Now, I believe that if people are trying to get, there's an influx of refugees into the country, and for some reason the government as a foreign policy does not want to allow them to come into the country, either because of fear of their changing the demographic profile, for various other reasons. If there's a worry, it might be a matter of pure foreign policy. But if people are already in and then you want to deport them, the moment they come in, under our constitution, they get a right under Article 21. And therefore, they have what they can call a fundamental right, even though they're not citizens, even though they're illegal aliens, even though they are refugees. But the point is this, even this fundamental right is subject to restrictions. Now, let's not forget one thing. National security is of vital concern. It is a matter which affects a whole lot of people. While on the one hand, you might say that here is the future of 40,000 Rohingyas in danger or in doubt. On the other hand, we're talking about 1 billion Indians who can be affected by security, by national security threats. So it's a totally different matter. Now, the point is that because Article 21 is involved, the court, of course, will go into the question. But when an affidavit like this is filed by the executive, don't forget that here the court will not be sitting in judgment as to whether the government is right or wrong. They will merely go into the question as to whether the government has material. And that material has been the basis. They have reason to believe that they can be a threat, and therefore they have to take an executive decision. The court is not going to sit in judgment to say that, look, or sit in appellate jurisdiction and say, was that judgment correct of the government? Was this material vis-a-vis other material? Is this what you call insufficient, sufficient, etc.? The court will merely look at a question as to whether the government had material or not. Now, looking at the affidavit filed, if that affidavit is in fact true, and if that affidavit in fact is backed with material, then I'm afraid that there is a very serious question involved which just can't be dismissed on the ground of saying, look here, there's human rights involved, there are rights of the refugees involved, there are rights of life and liberty involved, etc.
If you would just allow me, I just beg your indulgence, Mr. Aryamasundram. I want to read out the part in the affidavit where the government has said that they are placing material of national security in a sealed cover and giving it only for the perusal of the court. Point number one. And point number two, it says,
you're right.
This honorable court may therefore accede to any, may not therefore accede to any prayer which may amount to rewriting or substituting an essential executive policy of the central government. Taking care of the security of the country is part of the executive
That's
policy
exactly what
of
I said,
government
Navika.
in power. So on this ground, can there be any question that can be raised by all those who are politically opposed to this government?
Look, without a doubt, the politicians are going to run riot on this. You can always have a view. Now, don't forget this influx has come from 2012, 2013. And I asked myself a question. What was done from 2012, 2013 at that time? Why was the influx allowed in the first place? Secondly, once it has been allowed, now today if the government is seriously saying, look, we have material to show that it's a security threat, and if in fact there is material to show that there is a security threat, I don't think it becomes a matter of politicians being able to say, look here, India has to be humanitarian. India's humanitarianism, I'm sorry, even the right to liberty ends where my nose begins. And let's not forget one thing, that as far as that is concerned, the rights of these people, the rights, however much India wants to be hospitable, wants to be a humanitarian state, if national security is involved and the court is satisfied that the government has material to say that, I believe that this is a matter which is left to the executive decision of the government.
Well said, Ghanshyam Tiwari. Will you now take the counsel that's coming from such a learned lawyer? He says that when it comes to national security, then national security is supreme. And Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari, before you can come in, may I just play out the tape for you where Ashraf Jalali, who is the member of the council, Sunni Ittihad Council cleric, which has its links with the Lashkar-e-Toiba. What does he say on this tape? Hear that blood-chilling warning coming up on tape and then talk about the national security of this country. Let's play out that tape.
ये तलवार हाथ में पकड़कर मैं मोदी और सूची की साजिश को ललकार रहा हूं। हमने बर्मा के जिहाद के लिए आज से रजाकार भर्ती करने का काम शुरू कर दिया है। इस सिलसिला में तहरीक के जितने भी जिले दफातर हैं, वहां अपना नाम, शनाख्ती कार्ड की फोटो और अपना मुकम्मल एड्रेस ये जमा करवाएं। आज के प्रेस रिलीज में और इस वक्त के इस एलामिया के प्रोग्राम में मैं ऐलान कर रहा हूं, इंशाअल्लाह तहरीक लब्बैक या रसूल अल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की तरफ से पहले मरहला में हम 1 लाख रजिस्टर्ड नौजवानों की लिस्ट पेश करेंगे।
So you saw that it's recruitment and it says हमें बदला लेना है मोदी और सूची के साथ. This is a warning coming out. It's on tape. Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari, would you still urge that Rohingya problem, which is now being manipulated from Pakistan, should be completely blindfoldedly gone ahead with, Navika, and you should not look Modi. At any of these?
This is not Modi. Please note it.
Modi
this is
and
not Modi.
Suchi,
He said
sir,
Modi.
he mentions it.
He said
you haven't heard the tape, sir.
No, it is not Modi.
He said Modi,
Suchi.
Sir.
This is Modi Suchi. You repeat it again and listen. Listen it again. It is Modi and Suchi.
We've run it twice, sir. We've run it twice, sir.
I think first and foremost, all such tapes that create hatred and that try to scare people of our country, such tapes should be looked with a lens of national security, and we should be very, very strong to act against such forces. We are a country of free will, and I take Mr. Rahmani's point of view that the veracity of this tape should be looked at. But this debate is very aptly put by Mr. Pancholi and Mr. Aryaman Sundaram, that on one end you have a impeccable track record that we as a country have with respect to dealing with refugees, be it the Tamils, the Tibetans, the Iranis, or be it the Bangladeshis. On the other hand, you also have the right to life guaranteed by the Constitution, which goes beyond the citizens who are of the country. It goes to people who are residing in our territory. On matters of national security and foreign policy, the nation must speak in one voice, and government is also right in telling the Supreme Court that it is their executive decision. So we would not comment on that. What we would comment on is that this is certainly a humanitarian crisis, and if the matter is in Supreme Court, the government should provide due evidence rather than enabling forces that create rumor mongering. So through such tapes, that can be easily misinterpreted for rumor mongering, rather than enabling
rumor mongering. You call this Nalin Kohli? Is this rumor mongering? Is this rumor mongering when young children in impressionable age are being taught in madrasas to raise slogans of hate? Is this rumor mongering? And these are happening in shelters of Rohingyas that exist in the country.
Well, Nalin Kohli, before you start, I just want the government, like Aryaman Sundaram said, that provide hard evidence to the court rather than saying that this is not even open for a discussion.
Navika, I have many things to say. The first of all is that let's start from the top. The intelligence report is not just of India. There are intelligence reports of Burma as well as Bangladesh with regard to terrorist linkages that are of great concern. Even within Bangladesh, there is a protection of them being kept in a certain area and not being allowed to move out, because those concerns are real, as there is for the call of the destruction of Burma and the creation of a new country there through a movement of arms and ammunition and terrorism. Those who are doing it among the Rohingyas are linked to the Lashkar-e-Taiba, which needs no introduction with our security concerns, the Al-Qaeda or the ISIS. This is a real situation. The humanitarian angle, India as a country doesn't need to be told, we are doing it. Plane loads of relief are going to Bangladesh. That is the humanitarian angle. The right to life and liberty, Article 21, will begin with the citizens of India. If it is to be extended, as Mr. Sundaram is pointing out, that there are circumstances where those who are present here, because it's a right to life, but that right to life for an alien, in that sense a non-citizen, in that sense an illegal immigrant, cannot be at the cost of the right to life and liberty of a citizen, which in this case is threatened by terrorism. And that's a serious thing. The videos you are showing the breeding of the future, definitely extremists and perhaps terrorists of tomorrow. Because that is an extreme, hang this person, kill this person, we won't lose this life. This is not even fundamentalism. This is extremism to start with, which will definitely, some of them will graduate to be the terrorists of tomorrow. The last part is, the legal argument around refugees. India is not even a signatory to the 1951 Human Rights Convention or Refugee Convention or to the protocol. So that doesn't apply to us. We choose not for it to apply to us. Right through from 1951 to 2017, every government of every color and hue. Then there are two other aspects we can't ignore. Demographic changes have made Assam a tinderbox. Northeast is critical. Are we going to change that? The Buddhists are involved there. There are other communities in small numbers. It has a social, economic, in addition to security implication from demographics. It is a matter of further concern and requires investigation. How have Rohingyas gone and ended up being in Ladakh or in Jammu? We have displaced Indian citizens like Kashmiri Pandits, and parties or people haven't spoken for them, or they have just done lip service. We have citizens who wanted to cross over to India in 1947 are still denied citizenship in Jammu and Kashmir. We can't be a land of such confusion that we pick up a point from here, pick up a point from there, make a mishmash in the blender and then say human rights as a cloak. India's interests are first. Indians' interests are first. Indians are Indians irrespective of being Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Parsis, Jews, anything. But thereafter can be the story beyond it. And what we have today now is a situation that we should be worried about. We are seeing what happened in London. A Syrian young boy has gone ahead and with a bucket bomb. Thank God there were no casualties of the nature, but it was no less horrific. Every day we are reading about so-called refugees across the world stabbing someone, killing someone. How do you identify them and who will take the character certificate of this person is a terrorist or this may not become a terrorist in the future? There is no mechanism. So prevention is better than the cure. And we don't need any more risks to our citizens, nor put any further strain on our limited resources in trying to battle these security concerns at the cost of development.
Absolutely, and let's get in Taslima Nasreen. Taslima Nasreen, which side of the debate are you on, considering the fact that India is looking at its own domestic national security? Is that
Navika, before Taslima Nasreen comes, I have 2 or 3 sentences, small sentences. Can you allow me? Can you allow me?
Okay, Dr. Emani. Okay, Dr. Emani, make your point and then I go across to Taslima Nasreen.
You see, I have only a brief submission. Number one, Myanmar is in the international limelight due to the Rohingya issue these days. As I very openly and clearly say that it has become a battlefield for the South China Sea between United States and China, and the Rohingya peoples has become a weapon into the hand. Number two, this time it's an age-old problem, but now this time it has been propagated out of proportion at social media and international media for various reasons. Now we are looking. None of the agencies in the world has said that the Rohingyas are the terrorist organization or their Salvation Army, the Arakan Salvation Army is a terrorist organization. None of the world agencies has till today told this. Number three, whatever you have shown on the shown here, it is from the Pakistan. It is not from India. And tomorrow, what will happen if tomorrow some countries like the Iran or the Turkey or Indonesia or even Bangladesh attacks Myanmar for those most persecuted minorities who has been killed day in and day out and who has been made the mass exodus has
Dr.
been
Emani, why don't you answer the question? Where were you when the Kashmiri Pandits were being thrown out of Jammu and Kashmir? Wasn't that a humanitarian crisis, sir?
I wanted to say only these things. I wanted to say only these words, and now I am leaving this debate because this is my open and very clear stand that I cannot share any platform where Taslima Nasreen or that Tariq Fateh is there. I don't share any platform. I told you people always.
Why? That's your tolerance, sir. Why? That's your tolerance, sir.
So
that's your tolerance, sir. Dr. Emani, you are talking about humanitarian
for a terrorist organization, but not a lady.
You cannot speak.
Not a fellow Muslim traveler.
Not
a fellow Muslim traveler either.
Why, sir? Why, sir? What is your problem with Taslima Nasreen?
Like we'll stand with the Rohingya Muslim terrorists also. But
why can't you hear Taslima Nasreen?
Because she speaks her voice boldly.
No, why can't you hear Taslima Nasreen? You are the paragon of tolerance in this country. You are fighting for Rohingyas and you can't listen to Taslima Nasreen.
Because they are anti-Islam.
We will send people
that's unfair of you. That's unfair of you, Dr. Emani. You said you wanted to come in before Taslima Nasreen. I allowed you to say your piece before Taslima Nasreen. Now you will have to wait and listen to Taslima Nasreen to respond. You will have to listen to Taslima Nasreen, listen to her respond, Dr. Emani. Dr. Emani, you can't hoodwink Indians like this. You cannot hoodwink our viewers like this. You will have to listen to Taslima Nasreen. Taslima Nasreen, how do you respond to Dr. Emani?
It is you.
Navika, just one sentence with your permission. One sentence, please.
And every channel that I cannot share any
Navika, one sentence,
like
please.
Taslima Nasreen and men like
But you are fighting for the rights of Rohingyas.
Okay, bye-bye.
You are fighting for the rights of Rohingyas to be a refugee in India and somebody who India has given shelter to. You can't hear them.
I have a suggestion, Navika.
That's your tolerance. That's your humanitarian grounds, Dr. Emani. That's your humanitarian grounds. And Dr. Emani, don't take off your mic.
I have a suggestion,
don't take off your mic because I gave you permission to speak before Taslima. Listen to Taslima before you go. Listen to Taslima Nasreen before you go. Yes, Taslima Nasreen.
Thank you. India is a great country. I would be happy if India could maintain its generosity. But because of security threat, India has to take a decision to deport 40,000 Rohingya Muslims. I think that India would talk with Myanmar and ask Myanmar government to take back their people and give them citizenship. Those Rohingya Muslims have the right to live as human beings with their freedom and rights. But, you know, I think that they should not live in no man's land. And if they are deported, where would they go? In Bangladesh, already, more than 400,000 Rohingya Muslims are there. And those Muslims are involved in many crimes. They are committing crimes. Already yesterday, one Rohingya Muslim was killed by other Rohingyas. And it's not good. They are involved in drug trafficking and other kinds of crimes. And also they're involved with some terrorist organizations. If so many terrorists are in Muslim community, I'm not saying that all Rohingyas are terrorists. Some of them are terrorists. Because some of them are terrorists, so nobody wants any more Rohingya anywhere. But, I think that Muslims should be educated and they should get rid of their terrorism and fundamentalism. And, Islam should go through the enlightenment process other religions have gone through by questioning unequal, unethical, and unscientific aspects of religion. Otherwise, this religion will be totally in the backyard of modern society, and the Muslims will not be enlightened and educated, and then more and more people would be radicalized and they would become terrorists, and then they would not get any shelter anywhere if Muslims have any problems. So I think it is
You're right, Taslima Nasreen, because look at the radical mindset that has been presented by Dr. T.A. Rahmani tonight. And we are showing you that empty chair because Dr. Rahmani probably doesn't have the courage to listen to a woman who's part of Islam, who follows the Islamic religion, but who's speaking the truth. That there is requirement of education and there is requirement of the change of mindsets that is required by all Muslims. Otherwise, this is the way they will be treated. Nalin Kohli.
Navika, I have three things to say. The first, of course, is look at, if I may call it, the ridiculous irony. People like Dr. Taslima Rahmani will speak about the Constitution of India and speak of Article 21, but will exactly ignore Article 19, the freedom of speech and expression. So they would like their voice to be heard, they won't listen to another voice. They may disagree with it, they have the right to disagree with it, but to run down somebody on a show where you want to impose your views but not listen to the other, I think you should stop making television heroes of them and start, why have them? A debate is meant to take place. If he doesn't want to be on the show, he could have taken himself off the show without articulating his voice or his views. But once you articulate, you have to listen to the counter view. You may disagree with it. So I think, there are some norms of it, and it's good that it's happened and he stands exposed on that. The second part, of course, is on the Rohingya issue, which is the critical issue of today. A lot of stands are being mishmashed. What I'm finding with a lot of people, they're trying to pick up a strand of an argument here, a strand of an argument there, and then putting a counter argument. How do you know for sure all are terrorists? Nobody's saying they're all terrorists. But are they breeding grounds for terrorism? Yes. Are there links with people from the Rohingya community with a terrorist organization, which is in turn linked to LET, Al-Qaeda and the ISIS? Yes. Do Muslims not suffer from terrorism as much as Hindus, Christians, everyone else in the world? So are we here not to protect ourselves? And on foreign policy, which is the last point, which Mr. Sundaram also pointed out, that's an executive domain. The government of India is obligated constitutionally to take a point of view for India's sovereignty, its security, and the interest and welfare of Indian citizens. The courts will not be looking at it from that perspective. So now that the matter is sub judice, the government has put it there, whatever be the legal arguments, they will take place there. But society can't be blind to the risks that we face from the Rohingya illegal immigrants. Security in terms of demographic, in terms of social, in terms of economic. India's aspirations have to be for the poor Indians who require those aspirations unleashed. It cannot be compromised further for a nebulous argument put on by a few that India's aspiring Indians should be further denied the aspirations because of arguments that are being built more on emotion and less on reality.
Point taken. Let me get in Dr. Fuad Halim. Dr. Fuad Halim, will political parties only use the Rohingya issue for political opposition? Do you think tomorrow, God forbid, if there was a terror attack in India and there was a hand of the Rohingya immigrants who've come in here, there have been reports in the past of the Bodh Gaya blast also where Rohingya presence could have had a role. Dr. Fuad Halim, would you still try to take away and bring in the humanitarian issue, bring in the communal issue, bring in the religion issue? You know, is national security not enough for all political parties to come onto the same platform?
Navika, I don't see a contradiction between national security and humanity playing itself out together. People who are seeing it as a contradiction, unfortunately, are going to cause problems for India's national security, as they already have. Let's be very clear. On the ground, you got 40,000 Rohingyas who have entered India, and they've entered India while the BJP government was controlling our borders. So number one, there's absolute failure on part of the BJP government, and they should primarily accept their responsibility that they've failed as far as maintaining the international boundary of India is concerned. The second point is that while the government of India is speaking in a different language, the Bharatiya Janata Party is speaking another language. Now, the difference between these two languages is actually politicizing the issue, because the BJP wants to make political mileage out of it. Now, what has the government of India done? You've had the Prime Minister of India go to Burma on the 6th of September, that's 12 days from now, and not talk to the Burma government on the question of 40,000 refugees that have entered India and are living on Indian soil. So the government of India has absolutely shown scant respect in actually talking to the people who should be taking care of their own people, who are now on Indian soil and now are burdening our infrastructure and actually stimulating this conversation. The second part is that what is the Bharatiya Janata Party saying? The Bharatiya Janata Party is saying that they should be deported. The foundation of that the government of India has placed in its affidavit to the Supreme Court, they use the word some Rohingyas are involved with links with Pakistani ISI. Now look at the language that is used. They are using in their affidavit some. They are asking the court not to what you call enter into executive territory, while they themselves are behaving as if the Supreme Court has passed an injunction. The government of India is absolutely paralyzed at this point of time, and there is a method in the confusion, because the government wants this confusion to continue, so that the Bharatiya Janata Party's basic ideology, that is to actually brand an entire people because of a few pieces of information that they have in their hand.
Dr. Fuad Halim, Dr. Fuad Halim, you are getting two remarks, one from Nalin Kohli and one from Mr. Arima Sundram. Mr. Arima Sundram wanting to come in. I'll come to you, Nalin Kohli, but Mr. Arima Sundram wanting to make a point.
I'm coming. Let me finish. I waited patiently for 40 minutes. I've waited patiently for 40 minutes to just make a couple of points. Now let's be very clear. The 40,000 Rohingyas are here on Indian soil. All the jingoistic talk is not going to ultimately create a situation where they're going to go back in the next couple of years back to their place, unless India raises its level of statesmanship, it speaks to Burma and Bangladesh and doesn't allow other forces interested in destabilizing this peaceful region, where this Bangladesh, Burma and the India border has been peaceful for the last since after 1971. This area has not been disturbed, and that's a cause of concern to a number of international agencies. We do not want this Rohingya issue to become the seed for fertile soil for these agencies to plant their seeds. So, that degree of statesmanship is expected of India. They should take the leadership. Come forward.
It can't be a monologue, Dr. Fuad Halim. You have to allow other people to rebut you.
Leaders in Burma and actually get everybody on the same table.
Now, look, all that I want to point out is, let's be very clear. So far as this whole issue is concerned, we talk about India being a humanitarian country, which it is. We're a humanist country. We're a country with a tremendous, tremendous reputation over centuries, over thousands of years of always being welcoming to people who need us. Now, the fact is we have behaved like that all along. Today you come through a perceptible threat area. If it's a perceptible threat area, to thereafter prevent people from coming in who you believe could carry amongst them. It's not that every one of them is a threat, but amongst them could be a sufficient number who could pose a real and serious threat. Now, to stop them from coming into the country, I believe is a pure foreign policy issue and nothing more. You then come across the other issue of those who are already in the country, who are illegal aliens, who are right now refugees, and what is to be done with them, whether India can deport them, should deport them or not deport them, or should integrate them into the Indian society, and over a period of time other questions will come up. What will be the rights of their children? What will be their rights? Do they become Indian citizens? Do they not? Now, according to me, since
and not only that, and questions that are coming in from our viewers, Mr. Arima Sundaram, on involved.in, people like Mr. Balaji are asking if we yield to
like
coercion.
National security. And when the government says it's a national security issue,
and if we yield to the coercion, Mr. Arima Sundaram, very soon they will become a vote bank. That's what Balaji is saying. India should only be for Indians. India should not be for those who want to come in, create a sense of insecurity, challenge our national security, and then become a vote bank for these politicians. Also, T.A. Rahmani, Dr. T.A. Rahmani getting a lot of flack on my panel tonight. In fact, there are people like Pramod Malhotra and people like Bhaskar who are saying, Mr. Rahmani, shame on you, Rahmani, demonstrated the cunning attitude of the so-called liberals and the seculars, and also some who are saying, like Govind Ganguly, who are saying, never give any platform to this intolerant T.A. Rahmani. Ghanshyam Tiwari, after talking about the humanitarian concerns allowing Rohingyas to stay in India, do you think what Dr. Rahmani demonstrated today is the kind of tolerance and the humanitarian concerns that people like you and Dr. Rahmani should be actually supporting?
Well, I don't think the two are related, me and Dr. Rahmani and this issue. But as far as what he demonstrated today is clearly unfair, and as it played out, that unfairness also plays out. As far as the debate is concerned, there is one thing that I must point out, that throughout this discussion that has happened on Rohingya, the duplicity of government stand must be questioned. Why did they let an affidavit leak out? Then they say that this is just a draft affidavit, and resubmit almost a similar affidavit today. Second, ministers of this government have spoken about Rohingyans as illegal immigrants, and in another breath as refugees. The two have different connotations. Three, if the Prime Minister was there in Burma or Myanmar, he should have spoken about it, that there are 40,000 people, we want to deport them to your country. These people could not be deported to nowhere. There has to be a place they has to be deported, because there is a right to life, and that our constitution bestows upon people, and by that logic, so Mr. Kohli can come in, that we cannot just send somebody to death, knowing fully well that there is a genocide in Myanmar that is happening. So it was a failure, and on that front for the Prime Minister to not speak about it when the government had
Nalin Kohli wants to rebut you. Nalin Kohli.
First and foremost, on Dr. Rahmani, another point. Look at the beauty of it, the ironical beauty, if I may say so. Dr. Rahmani was speaking of life and liberty under 21. He didn't listen to Article 19 in terms of freedom of speech and expression. What about Article 14? Equality between, without any discrimination on the basis of, say, gender. On the same panel, a fellow Muslim traveler, a lady, he doesn't want to share a panel with her. What message is it? Of intolerance? Is this the tolerance on the secular face of India? Certainly not. And certainly this is not the face that can give others in India or question the secular credentials of others in India. If this is the secular face of India, the tolerant face of India, then shame on us as a country. Number one. Number two.
Absolutely. And Taslima Nasreen, I have just 30 seconds. Taslima Nasreen, because Dr. T.A. Rahmani behaved the way he did,
just one thing.
I apologize.
What about in 2012
for
Bombay,
a fellow
Azad
Indian
Maidan
being as intolerant as Dr. Rahmani was. Taslima Nasreen, what would your message to Dr. Rahmani and many like him who show and display this intolerance towards you, what would be your message to them?
You know, I have experienced this kind of intolerant people. I have seen in my country, also in India. I think we should not actually label them as secular, because they are very intolerant people. They are not really secular. If, you know, it's very unfortunate. In India, I have seen that those people who are fundamentalists, they are called secular, but you know, fundamentalism has no relation with secularism. What I am thinking, actually, those people who are supporting Rohingyas and talking about that humanitarian ground, those Rohingya Muslims should be given shelter in India. But would they have, they would do the same if those Rohingyas or if those persecuted people were not Muslims, if they were Buddhists or Christians?
That's a very valid question, and it has been raised by Taslima Nasreen. We haven't raised it, nobody on the panel, but Taslima Nasreen, who is a Muslim, who is a follower of Islam herself, has questioned, are they supporting this only because Rohingyas are Muslims? And what about all those so-called humanitarian activists who today are raising this issue? Where were they when the Kashmiri Muslims were being displaced? Where were these people when the West Pakistan Hindus were seeking domicile status in Jammu and Kashmir? Not one march for them because they are Hindus, and secularism actually does not have any space for Hindus? That's the question we leave with our viewers tonight. Thank you very much to all my panelists for joining me on Rohingya recruitment tapes. Going up to my colleague Anand Narasimhan, who's joining me on